Currently partly sunny and 37. Your next news is at 8. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So Miguel Cardona, the Secretary of Education, he was playing possum when he was before that congressional committee last week, and he was asked by Georgia Representative Andrew Clyde to define a woman. He knows what a woman is. In fact, it's enshrined in the Biden administration's rewrite of Title IX. A woman is a person who identifies as a woman.
Exactly, and he made the announcement via social media Friday afternoon.
The final Title IX regulations we're announcing today advance that promise. These regulations make crystal clear that all our nation's students, no matter where they live or who they are, can access schools that are safe, welcoming, and respect their rights. This final regulation strengthens and restores vital protections against sex discrimination, including sexual harassment. It also protects students against discrimination based on pregnancy or related conditions, sexual orientation, and gender identity. Today's announcement is the result of a long rulemaking process, including input from many stakeholders, through the first ever national public hearing on Title IX and more than 240,000 comments, including comments from students.
That's just a long way of saying we're including gender identity, so women's sports is over.
Right, but in the 2-minute statement that he never said that. And at the end he said, for more information, go to, edu.gov, blah, blah, blah.
Well,
to find out what's going on.
It's interesting. Outkick followed up on the query of South Carolina basketball coach Dawn Staley, who, of course, embroiled herself in controversy when she said before the championship game against Iowa that basically if you identify as a woman, you should be able to play women's sports. So they said, well, it's not fair just to put this on Dawn Staley. Let's ask, Outkick did, let's ask every coach of a Sweet 16 team in the most recently concluded women's NCAA tournament, including Lisa Bluder of Iowa. Yeah. Having a tough time tracking down Lisa Bluder. They've made several inquiries as they document, but she went straight to recruiting, from recruiting to the NBA draft, WNBA draft, and then she also just doesn't really have time to respond to these two questions that they asked every coach. The two questions, I don't think it takes that long to answer them. Do you believe that transgender women should be allowed to compete in women's college basketball? Number one. Number two, why do you feel that way? Whatever way you feel. Here are the responses they received from the athletic departments of all the schools.
Oh, I can't wait.
Lisa Bluder, Iowa, no response. Corey Close, UCLA. Coach Close declines to comment on the questions below. So Kara Lawson, Duke. We will respectfully decline the opportunity to comment. Nikki Collin, Baylor. Appreciate you reaching out on this. We're going to decline to participate in the story. J.R. Payne, Colorado. Coach Payne will respectfully decline to comment on that time. At this time, Vic Schaefer, Texas. We'll pass on this one. Lizzie Gottlieb, USC. USC will decline to comment on this time. Kim Mulkey.
Oh, I love Kim Mulkey. Was she wearing a feathered boa?
Did not respond to request for comment. Gino Ariyama, UConn. Did not respond to request for comment. Neely Ivy, Notre Dame. Did not respond to request for comment. Tara Van Der Veer and Kate Payne retired at the end of the season. Did Tara. Kate's the new coach. Stanford did not respond. Wes Moore, NC State, did not respond. Terry Morin, Indiana, did not respond. Scott Rueck, Oregon State, did not respond. Lisa Fortier, Gonzaga, did not respond. Profiles in courage. Those women's basketball coaches. Really? You want men playing against your girls, do you? Riley Gaines recently sat down with Sage Steele, and Steele asked her an interesting question that she actually did respond to, because Riley Gaines has some courage here. And it was what Riley would say to the clownfish, Leah Thomas, if she was given the opportunity to speak with him.
Have you ever talked to him? Not outside of, no. no. At that meet, there was, of course, in the ready room and different things, very brief small talk, but no, never.
If he walked in here right now,
I'd love it.
Today, what would you say?
I would want him to know that his actions displayed an utter disregard for us as women, which is, of course, what the women's sporting category was created to protect and uphold and celebrate. I would let him know that, look, I have no animosity towards him. I really don't. Like, I don't garner this hatred in my heart. Ultimately, he was following the rules. It's the rules that are the problem. And I would be sure to tell him that. I would be sure to tell him, look, live your life, be who you want to be. Don't expect me to support it or affirm these delusions that you have, because you very much are a man. And that will never change. I would have no problem saying that to Thomas's face.
Yeah, so it's going to be, I guess, up to Riley and this high school group of female shot putters, track and field athletes in West Virginia. People saw the video of the West Virginia High School Athletic Association allowing men to compete against girls in track and field events. So the girls on this team all got up for their turn to throw the shot put, and they picked up the shot put and they twirled a couple times, and then they just handed it back to the official.
Yep. And
right.
That with the discus too, because he was throwing that. He's in that competition as well.
So like 5 of them in a row. So those girls in West Virginia have more courage to stand up for themselves than the adults at the highest levels of female sports and at the collegiate level. And that's where we are. That's where we are. For more on all this, please be joined by Madeline Kearns. She's a writer at National Review, visiting fellow at the Independent Women's Forum as well. Madeline Kearns, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. So
the impact of the Title IX rewrite that Miguel Cardona soft-pedaled there, it's sort of, this is, the NCAA has sort of played Pontius Pilate with it, waiting for this, and now they've got their directive, and so we're going to see more Leah Thomases, right?
Absolutely. So it's difficult to overstate just how sweeping this Title IX omnibus rule is. So it covers everything from due process rights. So it rolls back the due process protections that Betsy DeVos under the Trump administration put in place to make sure that if you're accused of sexual misconduct on campus, you get a fair hearing. Those are gone. It also, as you rightly outlined, it includes gender identity in the definition of sex, which basically collapses sex-based protections for women. Because if it counts as discrimination against women to decide that a man shouldn't be in a women's sports team or in a women's space, then forget women's safety, forget women's privacy. And the important thing to note here is this is not just college and high school. This is every educational entity in the United States that receives even a dime of federal funding. So this is incredibly sweeping legislation. There's also stuff in there that's going to be really damaging for parental rights, children being transitioned behind their parents' backs at schools. It's like I say, it's the worst of the worst. It's also flagrantly illegal, flagrantly unconstitutional. I'll give you an example of that. This is also going to affect free speech. So one way of defining sex-based harassment under the new Title IX regulations is that using sex-based pronouns when somebody wants you to call them she or her or a new female name, that would technically be sexual misconduct. That would be sexual harassment. That's constitutionally protected speech. This is complete executive overreach, and my colleagues at the Independent Women's Law Center already have a lawsuit ready to go to challenge this.
So what's the qualifier for what is a woman?
Well, as you said, the only thing you need to qualify as a woman is to say you're a woman, which is obviously absurd because we know what women are. Women are a biological category. They're people who are of the female sex. There's also, people aren't in bodies. That's a sort of strange metaphysical claim. People are bodies, and we can see them. Sex is not just only objective and immutable. It's observable. We know this. It's just common sense.
Well, and this is really important that you the point that you made about this, how expansive this is, that it's going to that it reaches down into K through 12 school systems too, because we know how so many of these government school systems operate. On the advice of counsel, we're going to surrender. Which is exactly what's going to happen. So anybody who's accused of anything or anybody that makes a demand of anything, they will defer, they will surrender, not dissimilar to what you're seeing on college campuses right now in the face of pro-Hamas protesters.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you made the point really well when you're kind of pointing to the abdication of leadership and actual, frankly, cowardice among these coaches. That's what you're going to see at the schools as well, because the schools don't want to be investigated by the Civil Rights Office. They don't want the lawsuits. They don't want the headache. They don't want the hassle. And so it's easier for them just to throw women under the bus and to give these trans activists what they want and what the Biden administration is telling them they have to give. And it's just disgraceful, especially when you consider the legacy of Title IX was exactly put in place to protect women from this kind of abuse. And here it is, in the name of Title IX, that the very same disadvantages that are being inflicted on women.
Well, can you imagine women's collegiate basketball? This is going to destroy that, especially after all the gains that they've made with, viewership with Caitlin Clark and others.
Yeah, I mean, there's also a safety element, right? Especially when you're moving into these sports that, if not outrightly contact sports, they can easily become and involve contact. I mean, it's not safe to have women in the same competitive sphere as men. I mean, you know, especially when you get to things like wrestling. I mean, these are not made up examples. There have been women who have been seriously injured from these kinds of policies, and it just goes to show, as Riley Gaines put it, this reckless disregard for women in all this, just to appease the feeling of a small minority of men who frankly have this delusion that there are women. And somebody just needs to be able to take some leadership on this and say, I'm sorry, you're entitled to live out your private fantasies, but you're not entitled to take away the rights of other people.
Well, so this is on the ballot in November, too, because the only way that this gets undone, I mean, I understand Independent Women's Forum has a complaint at the ready, but through the courts, okay, but in terms of executive action on this, the only way this gets undone is with a change in administration. And that needs to come, pretty quickly, because it's one of those things that the further down the road this gets, the more difficult it is to retrace your steps, as we've seen over and over again. And, of course, the identitarians know this.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, the point I would make about the previous Trump administration was that what they did was actually a lot of damage control from the Obama era, because all of this actually started with Obama sending out Dear College letters, advising schools. And again, it was very surreptitious. It was below the radar. It's really sneaky how they go about it, and we've seen that with Biden's Secretary of Education as well. And actually the Trump administration they were trying to undo all of this damage and put some proper protocols in place, but they were also trying to give schools and the public some clarity and say, look, sex is objective, it's immutable. We have no reason to think that it's anything other than that. And in fact, you can't really base a policy on anything other than that. The Biden administration tries to appeal to the precedent set in the Bostock decision in 2019, which was a really not good decision for the side of sanity, but it doesn't say what the Biden administration pretends it does. And it was specifically limited to Title VII, which relates to employment. And we're talking about education, we're talking about Title IX. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right, though. The best case scenario would be that Republicans could get in and sort of clean house here, because it is just so far reaching. And in the meantime, this legislation, or it's not legislation, this order goes into effect August 1st. And so, yeah, there's going to be, before we get this lawsuit off the ground, there's going to be damage and there's going to be massive confusion, and that should be avoided.
Madeline Kearns, writer at National Review, visiting fellow at the Independent Women's Forum. Madeline, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to Dan and Amy on your smartphone. Download the AM 560 mobile app today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Chicagoland agrees. McGrath Lexus is the overwhelming choice of luxury vehicle shoppers. Their unparalleled team of sales consultants expertly help you navigate their immense inventory to arrive at the perfect vehicle for you. With 2 convenient state-of-the-art dealerships in downtown Chicago and in Westmont, they offer 2 times the selection and 2 times the discounts. And right now, McGrath Lexus is offering a premium for your current vehicle. It will never be worth more. Make this the year you enjoy the luxury of Lexus as only McGrath can offer. Your McGrath experience will take Lexus ownership to a whole new level. Do not deny yourself this privilege. You deserve it. Visit one of our 2 McGrath Lexus dealerships in downtown Chicago or in Westmont, or visit us online at McGrathLexus.com, because when you do